All right, well, hello and welcome on the Kodiak Broncos Podcast, and today I'm here to talk about DeVaughn Vele. There has been a lot in local media this morning, and there's been a lot on the Twitter timeline about whether the Broncos should trade DeVaughn Vele or not, but I'm here to let you know where I stand with that, and I just do not think the Broncos should do this whatsoever. But before we get into it, I just want to say a couple things. First of all, leave a like if you enjoy, subscribe if you're not already, share with anybody who you may think might enjoy my Broncos content, and yeah, without further ado, let's dive right into it. So, there are a lot of people that advocate for it, and a lot of the sentiment around it is not that DeVaughn Bailey is a bad player, because he's not a bad player. He's definitely a useful guy, and I think everybody in Broncos country, whether they want to move on from Bailey or not, can agree that he's earned his roster spot on this team, whether they keep him or not. But, a lot of people say that, he's the odd man out. And you know what? I don't disagree with that necessarily, but here's why I don't think it makes sense to move on from him, even if he is the odd man out. So, a lot of people say that the depth chart and slot role are overcrowded right now, and Vele doesn't offer anything spectacular. And while I semi agree with this, I also don't agree with this, but I'm going to get into all my counter arguments for all these points. So, I'm like 50-50 on that. I'm just like, I see where you guys are coming from, but, I'll talk about that in a few minutes here. Second, we don't want to make the same mistake that we did last year with Josh Reynolds. The reason I don't agree with this, well, I'll save that for my slide. But I think had we kept Tim Patrick and never signed Reynolds to begin with, I don't think anybody would be saying this, because last year we got some of the worst skill position play in the league, especially early on. But if we had kept Tim Patrick, would you all be saying this? I'm not entirely sure. And a lot of people want Bryant, Franklin, Mims, and Sutton to be given chances to grow. And I think mainly the first three right there, Bryant, Franklin, and Mims, since those all are young players. But, I can't disagree with that, but we'll see. And then it might be best to trade Vele to upgrade at a position of need, like tight end or inside linebacker. Once again, I don't agree with this, but, you should always be looking to improve your team, but we'll talk about that a little later. So, yes, Vele is the odd man out. Like, I do think if you are going to deactivate somebody on game day, it is going to be Vele. It's not going to be Sherfield. It's not going to be Mims. It's definitely not going to be Sutton. It's not going to be Bryant. It's not going to be Franklin. But his value to us right now as a contending team is higher than his trade value to other teams. Okay, his profile indicated a guy who was a 7th-round pick in the NFL. And I think we can all agree that he's outplayed that. But the reality of the situation is good slot guys grow on trees. And for somebody like him who's 6'5", 210, the trade value is not going to be that high, especially as a 28-year-old player or soon-to-be 28-year-old player. And listen, DeVaughn Vele is not blocking any young wide receivers from anything like Josh Reynolds was. Vele himself is still ascending. He's still growing. He was a 27, 26-year-old rookie, which means he has a lot of, or he has low mileage on his body. You never know how a guy can develop. I don't think we know what Vele's ceiling looks like. One of my co-hosts, Jeremy, brought this up on Horsepower Hour. I don't think we know what Bo Nix's ceiling is, even despite the fact that he was an older rookie. A lot of people tried to paint him as like a high floor, low ceiling kind of guy, but we saw that wasn't the case. And listen, all the young guys outside of Sutton should still be given the first chance, but Vele is solid role depth. And once again, we have Super Bowl aspirations, and his trade value is not worth shipping him off, in my opinion, unless you can get a clear, bona fide upgrade where you're weak. So here's my counter argument to people saying he doesn't offer anything spectacular. I think he does. I think he has a blend of skills that the rest of this team lacks so far. First of all, he's 6'4", 6'5". He has very reliable hands. I think the only time I saw him, drop passes last year was in the Buffalo game, which, that was a pretty bad time to drop third down passes, but you know what I'm saying. I thought he was very reliable. He was a good go-to guy for Bo Nix, especially when we didn't have a lot of go-to guys. And also, he had the highest reception percentage of beating zone on this team last year. And for a big slot guy, it's more important that you beat zone rather than beat man. So that's where I think he does have a leg up on everyone else. And listen, he really stepped up last year when our depth and skill play was horrifically bad. Okay, week 1, he looked like the only part of this offense that was functioning when we went to Seattle. And then weeks 4, 5, 6, as he was coming back from that knee injury, he found his way onto this team, or I want to say around week 7, 8, 9. That's around. And that's around when he came back, yeah. And overall, I just felt like he was really, really impressive, especially for a guy that missed a large part of his rookie season due to dealing with the injury. And I will give you that he's not a great blocker, especially for a dude who's 6'5", and that might keep Sean Payton. That might encourage Sean Payton to keep him off the field. But even as a 27-year-old second-year player, he's not done growing. Okay, you never know what he could do, where he could take steps forward within his route running, within his football IQ, and all the stuff that he did not have during his rookie year that could help him grow into a really, really nice role player for this team. He already is a very nice role player for this team, and I think we all saw that and would all agree with that based on what we saw last year. But that's what I have to say about that. People also say the slot role is really crowded right now, and I don't necessarily agree with this because Franklin is not a slot, at least not yet. He was not deployed as a slot last year, and that's not to say that he could not be a slot this upcoming year, could not be our primary slot even, because I wouldn't be surprised if he was. Marvin Mims also was not a slot last year, okay? Marvin Mims, we know, was that gadget, like do-it-all kind of guy, mainly a decoy who was a splash big play threat. But Troy Franklin was an opposite boundary X receiver. He was not a slot guy either. Now, once again, Franklin, with his improvements, maybe he does line up in the slot a little more, but DeVaughn Vele right now is our starting slot day one. Like, that's just how I feel about it. Assuming everything comes back positive with the knee injury, Bryant and Sutton also don't project as power slot role guys either. Bryant is most likely going to be in the Lil Jordan Humphrey role. And then Cortland Sutton, we know him. He's just the X. So Sherfield has also done some really good work so far. And I think Sherfield can play pretty much anywhere, but it's to be determined on his role when the games actually start. Either way, it's hard for me to project this role, without seeing it. It's hard for me to project DeVaughn Vele not fitting into this team, if you will, but without seeing anybody completely take over what he was able to do for us last year. Okay, there's also a lot of people who say that we could trade him and upgrade the team. This isn't necessarily wrong because every team in the NFL should be looking to improve where they're weak. Every team in the NFL should be looking, into opportunity cost. Ultimately, playing GM in the NFL is a game of maximizing your resources, maximizing your output. You know, trying to figure out where where you have a leg up and where you can improve the rest of your team. That's what being a GM in the NFL is. But Vele's profile does not correlate to somebody whose trade value is high at all. Like I said, he was a 7th round rookie for a reason. And while, yes, he has outplayed that for us, it doesn't mean that any team would be willing to give us something that's greater than our initial draft investment on him. We're not just trying to make a quick buck on a guy like Vele, especially in our Super Bowl window. And my big thing is if he's not going to fetch something that's greater than his value, then why trade him? Okay, I understand if you're offered a really good tight end 2 or inside linebacker, but a lot of teams really aren't willing to give up depth, especially with positions that they're already good at. So, I don't know. It's just one of those things. Just because you have a strength somewhere doesn't mean you should move on from it, okay? Would you trade Jaquan McMillan right now? No, I wouldn't, to be quite honest. And, yeah, that's the way I feel about him. We're a team with championship aspirations, so for us, it just doesn't make sense. That's just all I can say about that. I know that a lot of people, are kind of hung up on the idea that, okay, more resources might help this team in the long run. And while that might be true, while, that 4th round pick, 5th round pick, if you can get something like that, might be more helpful to this team in the long run than DeVaughn Vele, then I mean, I don't know. We'll see. But I just don't think so. I don't think so. I think it just makes sense to keep Vele right now because I just don't think you're going to get anything. I'm obviously not a NFL GM. I'm not hearing these discussions on the phone. But I just don't see how you would get anything greater to his worth for this team right now. That's all I'm trying to say. All right, that basically does it for me. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. And I will see you guys next time. Now I salute. Then why play?